At a New Year's Eve party, a family gathers to celebrate, but a heavy atmosphere hangs in the air due to the inexplicable absence of a loved one for almost a week. The family dog, unusually restless and agitated, leads everyone to the backyard, where, horrified, they discover that the animal has unearthed a buried rusty gun, turning the celebration into a nightmare. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows across the manicured lawns of Maple Grove, the Thornton family estate comes alive with twinkling lights and the sound of laughter. The grand Victorian mansion, a testament to old money and tradition, stands proudly against the backdrop of a crisp December evening in New England. Garlands of evergreen and red ribbons adorn the wraparound porch, while the scent of cinnamon and pine wafts through the air, mingling with the unmistakable aroma of roast turkey. Inside, the warmth of the crackling fireplace in the living room contrasts sharply with the chill outside. Crystal chandeliers cast a soft glow over the gathering of elegantly dressed guests, their champagne flutes clinking in toasts to the holiday season. The walls, adorned with generations of family portraits, seem to whisper tales of Christmases past. In the expansive kitchen, steam rises from pots of mulled wine, and trays of freshly baked gingerbread cookies cool on marble countertops. The dining room table, set with fine china and polished silver, awaits the annual feast that has brought the Thorntons together for decades. Yet, amidst the festive cheer, an undercurrent of tension ripples through the gathering. Hushed conversations in corners, furtive glances exchanged between family members, and the conspicuous absence of one chair at the table hint at a mystery that threatens to unravel the very fabric of this seemingly perfect family tableau. Outside, in the frosty garden, an old golden retriever named Max paces restlessly, his nose twitching as if catching a scent that only he can detect. His behavior, unusual for the normally placid dog, goes unnoticed by the partygoers inside, but it marks the beginning of a night that will change the Thornton family forever. At the center of the Thornton family gathering is Elizabeth Thornton, the family matriarch. In her mid-70s, Elizabeth carries herself with the grace and poise of a woman who has weathered life's storms with dignity. Her silver hair is elegantly styled, and her eyes, though filled with warmth, hold a glimmer of concern tonight. As she moves through the room, greeting guests with a practiced smile, her gaze occasionally drifts to the empty chair at the table, a subtle reminder of the absence that weighs heavily on her heart. James Thornton, Elizabeth's husband of 50 years, stands near the fireplace, his weathered hands clasping a glass of scotch. At 78, the retired judge's once commanding presence has softened, but his sharp eyes miss little. Tonight, they flicker between his wife and their 3 adult children, gauging the undercurrents of tension with the practiced eye of a man accustomed to reading a courtroom. The eldest Thornton child, Sarah, 45, is a successful corporate lawyer. Her perfectly tailored suit and impeccable makeup can't hide the strain around her eyes. She keeps checking her phone as if expecting or dreading an important message. Her husband, Michael, a quiet academic, watches her with a mixture of concern and helplessness. Thomas, the middle child at 42, paces near the window, his usual easygoing demeanor replaced by nervous energy. As a local police detective, he seems torn between his professional instincts and family loyalty, his brow furrowed in deep thought. The youngest Thornton, Emily, 38, sits quietly in a corner, her artistic temperament evident in her bohemian dress and the sketchbook clutched tightly in her hands. Her eyes dart nervously around the room, as if searching for inspiration or escape. Her fiancé, Alex, hovers nearby, unsure how to comfort her in this unfamiliar family dynamic. Uncle Robert, Elizabeth's younger brother, holds court near the bar. At 70, he's still the life of the party, regaling younger relatives with stories from his globe-trotting days. But those who know him well might notice the slight tremor in his hand as he raises his glass, a telltale sign that all is not as carefree as he portrays. Amidst the adults, two teenagers try to blend into the background. Lily, Sarah's 16-year-old daughter, taps away furiously on her phone, her face a mask of teenage indifference that barely conceals her anxiety. Her cousin, Jack, Thomas's 14-year-old son, fidgets uncomfortably in his ill-fitting suit, his eyes darting between the adults, picking up on tensions they think he's too young to understand. Outside, Max the golden retriever continues his restless patrol of the garden. His presence, though physically separate from the gathering inside, serves as a silent sentinel. His instincts are tuned to the undercurrents of human emotion that swirl through the Thornton home. As the clock strikes 9, the festive atmosphere is suddenly shattered by a series of sharp, urgent barks from the garden. Max's normally friendly demeanor has transformed into one of intense focus and agitation. The family rushes to the windows, peering out into the darkness to see Max digging frantically in the frozen earth near the old oak tree. Thomas, the police detective, is the first to step outside, followed closely by his father, James. As they approach, Max's digging becomes even more frenzied. The rest of the family gathers on the porch, their breaths visible in the cold night air, a mixture of curiosity and dread etched on their faces. Suddenly, Max lets out a whine and steps back from the hole. Thomas kneels down, using his phone's flashlight to illuminate the disturbed earth. His sharp intake of breath is audible in the tense silence. Reaching into the hole, he slowly pulls out a mud-covered object, a rusted handgun. The collective gasp from the family is almost drowned out by Elizabeth's choked sob. As Thomas examines the weapon with professional detachment, the unspoken question hangs heavy in the air. Could this be connected to the missing family member? The discovery of the gun sends shockwaves through the Thornton family, each member reacting in their own distinct way. Elizabeth, visibly shaken, retreats to the living room, sinking into her favorite armchair. James follows, his judicial demeanor slipping as he places a comforting hand on his wife's shoulder. The weight of unspoken words hangs heavy between them. Sarah, ever the pragmatist, immediately goes into crisis management mode. She pulls Thomas aside, her voice low and urgent. "We need to handle this carefully, Tom. The family's reputation is at stake." Thomas bristles at her words, torn between his duty as a detective and his loyalty to the family. "This isn't about reputation, Sarah. This is about finding the truth," he retorts, the tension between siblings palpable. Emily, overcome with emotion, rushes to her old bedroom, Alex trailing behind her. Once inside, she breaks down, tears streaming down her face. "I can't believe this is happening," she sobs. Alex, out of his depth in this family drama, can only hold her, his silence speaking volumes about his discomfort. Uncle Robert's jovial facade crumbles as he pours himself another drink, his hands shaking noticeably. He murmurs to himself, "I never thought, after all these years." His cryptic words don't go unnoticed by Jack, who has been quietly observing the adults' reactions. As the initial shock subsides, the family members begin to eye each other warily. Old resentments and buried secrets threaten to surface, each person wondering if they really know the others as well as they thought. As the night wears on, the initial shock gives way to a tense, unspoken interrogation. In the study, James paces back and forth, his legal mind working overtime. He pulls Thomas aside, speaking in hushed tones. "Son, as a judge, I've seen cases built on less. We need to be prepared for anything." Thomas nods grimly, the weight of his dual roles as detective and family member evident in his furrowed brow. Elizabeth, having regained some composure, begins to fuss over the neglected holiday preparations. Her hands shake as she straightens the table settings, a futile attempt to maintain normalcy. Sarah approaches her mother, gently taking the plates from her trembling hands. "Mum, maybe we should postpone the dinner," she suggests softly. Elizabeth's eyes flash with unexpected steel. "Absolutely not. This family has faced challenges before, and we've always done it together." In the corner of the living room, Emily has set up an impromptu art station, furiously sketching on her pad. The chaotic lines and dark colors reflect her inner turmoil. Alex watches her, bewildered by this side of his fiancée he's never seen before. "Em, do you want to talk about it?" he ventures. She shakes her head, not looking up. "I need to get this out, Alex. It's the only way I know how to process all of this." Uncle Robert, now visibly intoxicated, corners James in the hallway. "Jimmy, remember that summer at the lake house? We swore we'd never—" James cuts him off sharply. "Not now, Robert, and not ever." The exchange doesn't go unnoticed by Lily, who's been eavesdropping from the staircase. As midnight approaches, the family reluctantly gathers in the dining room, the festive meal now a somber affair. The empty chair at the table looms large, a glaring reminder of the absent family member. Jack, unable to bear the silence any longer, blurts out, "Are we just going to pretend everything's normal?" His outburst hangs in the air, giving voice to what everyone's been thinking. Max, sensing the heightened emotions, moves to Jack's side, resting his head on the boy's lap. The simple gesture of comfort brings tears to several eyes around the table, a moment of shared vulnerability in the midst of suspicion and fear. As the clock strikes midnight, the tension in the Thornton household reaches a breaking point. Thomas, unable to ignore his professional instincts any longer, stands up from the dining table. "I'm sorry, but we can't keep avoiding this. We need to talk about the gun and the disappearance." His words fall like a hammer on the fragile silence. Sarah immediately objects, her lawyer instincts kicking in. "Thomas, you can't seriously be considering investigating your own family. It's a conflict of interest." Her voice is sharp, protective, but there's an undercurrent of fear. James intervenes, his voice carrying the weight of his years as a judge. "Enough! We need to approach this rationally." He turns to his son. "Thomas, what exactly are we dealing with here?" Elizabeth gasps, her composure cracking. "You filed a report without telling us." The betrayal in her voice is palpable. Emily, who has been sketching furiously throughout the conversation, suddenly throws down her pencil. "How can you say that? We're talking about family here." Her outburst startles everyone, especially Alex, who's never seen this passionate side of her. With the teenagers gone, the adults face each other, the facades of normalcy completely shattered. The challenges ahead loom large. Maintaining family unity while uncovering potentially damaging truths, balancing legal obligations with personal loyalties, and confronting long-buried secrets that threaten to destroy relationships. Thomas, realizing the gravity of the situation, addresses the family. "I know this is hard, but we need to be honest with each other. Everyone in this room is both a potential witness and," he hesitates, "a potential suspect." The word suspect hangs in the air, a devastating blow to the family's trust. Each member of the Thornton family must now grapple not only with their own secrets, but with the terrifying possibility that someone they love might be involved in something unthinkable. The word suspect reverberates through the room, causing a seismic shift in the family dynamic. Elizabeth, her face pale, stands up abruptly. "I won't sit here and listen to accusations against my family." Her voice trembles with a mix of anger and fear. Sarah, ever the pragmatist, interjects, "We need to control the narrative. If word gets out about the gun, about the disappearance, it could ruin us." Her words hang in the air, a stark reminder of the potential consequences beyond the family circle. Emily, who has been quietly listening, suddenly speaks up. I saw something the night before the disappearance." All eyes turn to her, a mix of curiosity and apprehension on their faces. "I was in the garden sketching. I saw—" She hesitates, her artist's eyes clouded with doubt. "I'm not sure what I saw." Alex, feeling out of his depth, places a comforting hand on Emily's shoulder. "It's okay, Em. Take your time." His support seems to steady her, but the others lean in, hungry for information. James fixes his brother-in-law with a stern look. "Robert, maybe you've had enough for tonight." The underlying tension between the two men is palpable, hinting at old grievances. Thomas, trying to regain control of the situation, addresses the room. "Look, I know this is difficult, but we need to work together. Tomorrow, I'll have to report the gun. We need to decide how we're going to handle this as a family." The challenges facing the Thorntons multiply with each passing moment. They must navigate the treacherous waters of a potential criminal investigation while protecting their family bonds. Trust, once implicit, is now fragile. Each family member grapples with the weight of their own secrets and the fear of what others might be hiding. As midnight fades into the early hours of the morning, the Thornton family finds itself at a crossroads. The path ahead is fraught with legal, emotional, and moral obstacles. The true test of their family bond lies not just in uncovering the truth, but in how they choose to face it together. As dawn breaks over the Thornton estate, the family members find themselves in various states of distress and determination. Thomas, having barely slept, is the first to act. He makes a series of phone calls, speaking in hushed tones to his colleagues at the police department. His professional demeanor is strained as he tries to balance his duty as a detective with his role as a family member. Sarah, ever the strategist, has spent the night researching precedents and legal strategies. She corners Thomas in the kitchen, her voice low and urgent. "We need to get ahead of this, Tom. I've contacted our family lawyer. We should have a united front before you submit that report." Thomas nods reluctantly, recognizing the wisdom in her words, despite his reservations. Meanwhile, Elizabeth throws herself into household tasks with almost manic energy. She scrubs the already spotless kitchen, rearranges flowers, and fusses over breakfast preparations. It's her way of maintaining control in a situation spiraling beyond her grasp. James watches his wife with concern, unsure how to comfort her. Emily, bleary-eyed from a night of furious sketching, emerges from her room with a series of dark, chaotic drawings. She spreads them out on the dining room table, much to Alex's bewilderment. "It's all here," she mutters, more to herself than anyone else. "I just need to make sense of it." Uncle Robert, nursing a hangover, slinks down to the basement, ostensibly to look for old family photo albums. His furtive behavior doesn't go unnoticed by Jack, who has taken it upon himself to keep an eye on the adults. As the morning progresses, the family's actions betray their inner turmoil. Each member grapples with the situation in their own way, their reactions a mix of protective instincts, fear, and a desperate need for answers. As tensions rise, the family's actions become increasingly erratic. James, unable to stand idle any longer, retreats to his study. The sound of drawers opening and closing, papers rustling, hints at a frantic search for something, or perhaps an attempt to hide evidence. His uncharacteristic behavior draws curious glances from the others. Sarah, ever the problem solver, sets up an impromptu command center in the living room. She's on the phone with contacts, calling in favors, and strategizing damage control. Her laptop is open, fingers flying across the keyboard as she drafts statements and scenarios. "We need to be prepared for every possibility," she mutters, her lawyer's mind in overdrive. Thomas, torn between his roles as detective and family member, paces the porch, his phone constantly to his ear. He's delaying the inevitable report, buying time for the family, but the strain of his divided loyalties is evident in every tense conversation with his colleagues. Emily, driven by an artistic compulsion she can't explain, continues to sketch feverishly. Her drawings become more abstract, more disturbing. Alex hovers nearby, torn between concern for his fiancée and a growing unease about what her art might reveal. Uncle Robert emerges from the basement, clutching an old shoebox. His face is ashen as he approaches James, speaking in urgent whispers. The two men retreat to a corner, their hushed conversation punctuated by sharp gestures and worried glances. Lily finally emerges from her room, her eyes red-rimmed but determined. She seeks out Jack, and the two cousins huddle together, sharing whispered theories and observations. Their youthful perspective, unclouded by years of family secrets, might hold the key to unraveling the mystery. Elizabeth, having exhausted her list of chores, stands in the center of the kitchen looking lost. The matriarch, who has always been the family's emotional anchor, now seems adrift. It's Max who comes to her rescue, nudging her hand with his nose, offering canine comfort in the midst of human chaos. As noon approaches, the family's actions have created a web of activity, each member following their own path in search of answers or escape. The house buzzes with nervous energy, a stark contrast to the festive atmosphere of just 24 hours ago. The doorbell's chime echoes through the Thornton house, freezing everyone in place. Thomas, his detective instincts kicking in, motions for everyone to stay back as he approaches the door. Elizabeth clutches James's arm, her knuckles white with tension. Sarah quickly closes her laptop while Emily hastily gathers her sketches. Uncle Robert seems to shrink into himself, his eyes darting nervously. Thomas takes a deep breath and opens the door. Standing on the porch is Detective Lisa Morgan, Thomas's partner from the police department. Her presence sends a ripple of anxiety through the family. As Thomas steps outside with his partner, the rest of the family exchanges worried glances. Through the window, they can see the intense conversation unfolding. Thomas's face grows increasingly pale, his gestures becoming more agitated. "There's been a development," he begins, his voice heavy. "A body has been found in Willow Creek Park." Detective Morgan steps forward. "Mr. and Mrs. Thornton will need one of you to come to the morgue for identification." As James and Elizabeth prepare to leave, Detective Morgan turns to the rest of the family. "I'm sorry, but I need to ask you all to remain here. We have some questions about the gun that was found." Detective Morgan's eyes narrow. "Mrs. Thornton, this is a potential homicide investigation. Cooperation would be in everyone's best interest." "What's gotten into that dog?" Uncle Robert mutters, his nerves clearly frayed. What they see in the backyard stops them in their tracks, adding another shocking twist to an already tumultuous day. Thomas instinctively moves to the front, his hand reaching for a weapon that isn't there. Detective Morgan is close behind, her own hand on her holster. "Police, come out with your hands up," she calls out. "Oh my God," Sarah whispers, her professional composure crumbling. Before he can answer, Detective Morgan steps forward. "Sir, we need you to come with us. There are some questions you need to answer." The rest of the family stands frozen, the shock of the reunion quickly replaced by the terror of what might happen next. Lily clings to Sarah while Jack watches wide-eyed, trying to process the unfolding drama. Emily reaches down and pulls out a small object, holding it up to the fading light. It's a locket covered in dirt, but unmistakably familiar. Before anyone can question him, the sound of a gunshot echoes from the woods, followed by shouts and another shot. The family members look at each other in horror, the momentary relief of finding their missing loved one now replaced by a new, terrifying uncertainty. As the family scatters to follow James's instructions, Emily stands rooted to the spot, the locket clutched tightly in her hand. She looks down at Max, who whines softly, sensing the gravity of the situation. In the distance, sirens begin to wail, heralding the arrival of more police. The Thornton family's worst nightmare is unfolding, and there's no turning back. The truth, buried for so long, is clawing its way to the surface, threatening to tear apart everything they've ever known. As the sirens grow louder, the Thornton family huddles in the living room, the tension palpable. Sarah paces, phone in hand, trying to reach Thomas. Lily and Jack sit huddled together on the couch, their young faces etched with worry. Alex hovers near Emily, who's still examining the locket, her brow furrowed in concentration. Suddenly, the front door bursts open. Thomas enters, his face grim, followed by a handcuffed and dejected-looking James. Detective Morgan brings up the rear, her expression unreadable. The room falls silent, all eyes turning to Robert. Thomas, his detective instincts taking over, asks, "What do you mean, Uncle Robert?" Robert nods, tears forming in his eyes. "We were young, so young, James and I. We both loved her." The revelation hits the family like a physical blow. Lily lets out a choked sob, while Sarah stands frozen, her legal mind racing to comprehend the implications of this decades-old crime. James, looking older and more vulnerable than ever before, nods slowly. We thought we could keep it buried forever, but when the missing person report came in, when the gun was found, I couldn't bear the weight of the secret anymore. As James and Robert are led away, the remaining family members are left to grapple with this earth-shattering revelation. The missing person they had been so worried about was safe. It was a ruse, a desperate attempt by James to bring the truth to light without directly confessing. The Thornton family's perfect facade has crumbled, revealing a dark secret that has festered for half a century. As the reality of the situation sinks in, they must now face the consequences of a long-buried crime and the web of lies that followed. As the shock of the revelation settles over the room, Emily suddenly gasps, her eyes fixed on the locket in her hand. With trembling fingers, she pries it open, revealing a faded photograph inside. "Look," she whispers, holding it out for the others to see. But it's not the photograph that has captured Emily's attention. She points to a tiny inscription on the inside of the locket. "June 15th, 1968, she reads aloud. "The day Maria disappeared." "The disappearance Dad reported wasn't about Maria at all," Thomas finishes. "It was a ruse to bring attention to the old crime without directly confessing." Lily, who has been quietly listening, suddenly speaks up. But who was Dad protecting by doing this? Himself or Uncle Robert? "What's going on now?" Alex asks, voicing the question on everyone's mind. The revelation lands like a bombshell, shattering any remaining illusions the Thornton family might have had about their past. The truth, it seems, is far darker and more complex than any of them could have imagined. In the days following the shocking revelations, the Thornton family finds themselves at the center of a media storm. The arrest of James and Robert Thornton, pillars of the community, for a decades-old murder sends shockwaves through their small town. As the investigation deepens, more unsettling truths come to light. Thomas, torn between his duty as a detective and his love for his family, takes a leave of absence from the force. He dedicates himself to uncovering the full extent of his father's and uncle's involvement in the crimes at Willow Creek Park. His investigation leads him to dusty archives and long-forgotten police reports, each discovery adding another piece to the grim puzzle. Sarah, meanwhile, puts her legal expertise to work. She tirelessly researches precedents and builds a defense strategy for her father and uncle. Despite the overwhelming evidence against them, she's determined to ensure they receive fair treatment under the law. Her dedication to family loyalty clashes with her professional ethics, forcing her to confront difficult questions about morality and justice. Elizabeth, reeling from the betrayal of her husband and brother, finds solace in unexpected places. She forms a bond with Maria's surviving relatives, who have long sought closure. Together, they work to honor Maria's memory and the memories of the other victims, organizing a memorial service that brings the community together in healing. As the legal proceedings begin, the Thornton family must navigate the harsh glare of public scrutiny. They face tough decisions about how much of their private pain to share and how to move forward in the face of their shattered reputation. As the trial date approaches, the Thornton family faces their greatest challenge yet. Emily, driven by a mix of artistic compulsion and a need for closure, begins a series of paintings that chronicle the family's history, including the dark secrets recently uncovered. Her work becomes a talking point in the community, with some praising its raw honesty and others condemning it as airing dirty laundry. Mukil, Lily and Jack, the youngest generation of Thorntons, struggle to come to terms with their family's legacy. They face bullying at school and isolation from former friends. However, their shared experience brings them closer together. They start a support group for children of incarcerated parents, turning their pain into a force for good in the community. Alex, initially overwhelmed by the family drama he married into, steps up to become a pillar of support for Emily and the rest of the Thorntons. His outsider perspective provides valuable insight as the family navigates their new reality. And as the trial begins, the courtroom becomes a battleground of emotions and revelations. Sarah's defense strategy focuses on the decades of positive contributions James and Robert made to the community, arguing for leniency due to their advanced age and the time that has passed since the crime. Thomas, bound by his oath as a police officer, is called to testify, forcing him to balance his professional integrity with his love for his father. The proceedings take an unexpected turn when new evidence comes to light, suggesting that the original crime may have been committed in self-defense. This revelation forces the family, the court, and the community to grapple with complex questions of guilt, redemption, and the nature of justice. And as the trial progresses, the Thorntons begin to realize that regardless of the legal outcome, their family will never be the same. They must find a way to reconcile their love for James and Robert with the horrible truth of their actions, and to forge a new identity as a family in the aftermath of scandal. Nay. As the trial concludes and the verdict is delivered, the Thornton family finds themselves in uncharted emotional territory. The courtroom falls silent as the judge sentences James and Robert to time served and house arrest, citing their age and the complicated nature of the case. The decision leaves the family with a mix of relief and lingering guilt. Elizabeth, her face a mask of conflicting emotions, reaches for her husband's hand as he's released. The touch is tentative, a physical manifestation of their relationship's uncertain future. "We have a lot to talk about," she whispers, her voice thick with unshed tears. Sarah, her professional demeanor cracking, allows herself a moment of vulnerability. She collapses into her chair, the weight of the past months finally catching up with her. Thomas places a comforting hand on her shoulder, the siblings finding strength in each other despite their past rivalries. Outside the courthouse, Emily stands before her latest painting, a haunting depiction of the family tree, its roots tangled in dark, hidden secrets. As onlookers gather, she feels a surge of catharsis. Her art has become a bridge between the family's painful past and an uncertain future. Lily and Jack, watching from the sidelines, exchange a look of understanding beyond their years. They've lost the innocence of youth, but gained a profound appreciation for the complexities of adult life and the importance of truth. In the weeks following the trial, the Thornton family retreats to their estate, seeking solace from the public eye. The once grand home now feels like both a sanctuary and a prison, its walls holding decades of secrets and newfound pain. James and Robert, now under house arrest, grapple with the consequences of their actions in different ways. James spends hours in his study, writing a memoir that he hopes will explain, if not excuse, the choices he made. Robert, consumed by guilt, finds purpose in tending to the garden where Maria was buried, transforming it into a beautiful memorial. Elizabeth, torn between anger and love, decides to channel her emotions into advocacy. She starts a foundation for cold case victims, determined to bring closure to other families affected by long-buried crimes. Her work becomes a source of healing, not just for herself, but for the community at large. Thomas, disillusioned with his career in law enforcement, hands in his resignation. He finds a new calling as a private investigator specializing in cold cases, using his experience to help others find the truth. His first case? Investigating the full extent of the crimes at Willow Creek Park, determined to bring closure to all the victims' families. Sarah, her worldview forever altered, shifts her legal focus to restorative justice. She begins working with a non-profit organization that facilitates dialogue between offenders and victims' families, seeking healing through understanding rather than punishment. Emily's art series, Secrets and Lies, gains national attention, As she prepares for her first major exhibition, she struggles with the ethics of sharing her family's pain with the world. The process forces her to confront her own role in the family's narrative and the power of art to heal and hurt. 1 year after the trial, the Thornton family gathers for a quiet dinner at the estate. The atmosphere is different now, subdued, but with an undercurrent of hard-won understanding. As they sit around the table, each member reflects on the journey they've undertaken. James and Robert, their house arrest ended, but their freedom forever altered, sit side by side. They're no longer the pillars of the community they once were, but they've found a measure of peace in their twilight years through community service and quiet reflection. Sarah and Thomas, once rivals, now partners in their quest for justice, share a look of mutual respect. Their work has brought closure to several families affected by the Willow Creek Park crimes, and they've learned to balance their professional lives with family loyalty. Lily and Jack, now in their late teens, have grown into thoughtful young adults. Their support group for children of incarcerated parents has expanded to multiple chapters across the state, turning their family's pain into a force for positive change. The Thorntons have emerged from their ordeal scarred but stronger, bound together by shared pain and the promise of redemption. They've learned that while the past cannot be changed, it's never too late to choose a new path forward. As the sun sets on the Thornton estate, casting long shadows across the once troubled ground, the family's journey comes full circle. The discovery of the rusty gun in the garden, which seemed so catastrophic a year ago, has led to a profound transformation. The Thorntons have weathered a storm of public scrutiny, legal battles, and personal reckonings. James and Robert, though forever marked by their past actions, have found a measure of redemption through their honest confrontation with the truth. Elizabeth's advocacy work has given voice to long-silenced victims, while Sarah and Thomas have channeled their professional skills into pursuing justice for others. Emily's art has sparked important conversations about family secrets and societal accountability. Lily and Jack, the youngest generation, have turned their pain into a beacon of hope for others facing similar struggles. The family's story, once a closely guarded secret, has become a testament to the power of truth and the possibility of healing, even in the face of unimaginable challenges. As they gather in the living room, surrounded by Emily's evocative paintings and the warmth of newfound understanding, the Thorntons recognize that their greatest strength lies not in perfection, but in their ability to face adversity together. 5 years later, the Thornton estate hosts a different kind of gathering. A small, diverse group of people, some family, some strangers brought together by shared experiences, sit in a circle in the garden. It's the first meeting of the Truth and Reconciliation Foundation, founded by the Thorntons. As Elizabeth opens the session, a sense of hope permeates the air. The past cannot be changed, but the future is full of possibilities. Ndri. As you reflect on the Thornton family's journey, consider the secrets buried in your own life or community. What truths might be waiting to be uncovered? Remember, it's never too late to confront the past and work towards healing. Share this story with others and let it inspire conversations about honesty, forgiveness, and the power of facing difficult truths together. The path to reconciliation begins with a single, brave step.